Do you think Angelina Jolie has always been this powerful, flawless, and unreachable figure? Imagine being at the absolute pinnacle of fame, with the entire world watching your every move, when suddenly, the ground beneath your feet simply vanishes. Not just one disaster, but an entire collapse of your professional and personal foundation in the blink of an eye. This is the precise moment when 99% of people surrender, crumble, and retreat into the shadows. But Jolie, in that exact moment, she did something that nobody, not even her harshest critics, expected. If you knew what happened behind those closed doors during those pitch-black nights, your entire perspective on the concept of failure might change forever. Most people only see her as a symbol of untouchable success, a Hollywood iron woman who nothing can stop. But that is only half the truth. The other half, years of being blacklisted, brutal media judgments that cut like knives into her soul, and personal battles so intense that just imagining them steals the air from your lungs. Everyone sees the final polish, the brilliance, and the red carpet glamour. But nobody sees the path that led to that summit, a path paved with thousands of jagged pieces of broken glass. Are you sitting in that same spot right now? Do you feel like every door in your life has been slammed shut, leaving you locked out? Keep listening, because we are about to pull back the curtain on the psychological pivot point that fundamentally rewired her life and career. Let's travel back to the era when absolutely no one was betting on her. She was the young rebel, the girl with uncontrollable stamped across her forehead. The film industry saw her as a burned-out asset, a liability they couldn't wait to replace. Everywhere she turned, she met high walls of denial and rejection. How did she claw her way out of that toxic atmosphere, that swirling vortex of public judgment? Here is the nuance. She didn't fight back with brute force, she played with her own weakness. In the exact moment when the world was waiting for her final collapse, she shifted the entire game. She realized that failure isn't a final destination, it's a high-leverage tool. But how does a woman, standing alone at the eye of a massive media storm, actually engineer her own mindset? She possessed a specific psychological strategy that even those closest to her didn't fully comprehend for years. This is the moment you need to focus on, because this technique didn't just work for Jolie, it is a scientifically backed formula for overcoming mental roadblocks. She learned how to delete the victim narrative in her mind and replace it with the hero in training narrative. Every time she suffered a setback, every time she lost a massive role, or every time her personal life was shredded by tabloid headlines, she asked herself one magical, high-impact question. It was a question that rewired the neural pathways of her brain instantly. You should be asking yourself the exact same question every time you hit a wall. This is the first step toward rising from your own ashes. What do you think that question was? Was it about shifting her identity, or was it about radical acceptance? Let's go deeper into the trenches. Imagine your entire world is falling apart, and the whole world is literally watching the wreckage. Can you feel the crushing weight of that psychological pressure? In those conditions, Angelina began utilizing what psychologists call perceptual framing. She learned to build an iron barrier between her true self and what the public perceives. But how? She began investing in her own pain. Every heartbreak, every rejection, and every loss was recycled into a masterclass for her acting or a profound insight into the human condition. Now, we approach the terrifying part of the narrative. The chapter where even Jolie seemed to lose total control of her destiny. When her health was compromised and she made decisions that shocked the world all over again. Many called it career suicide. But she knew that in order to rebuild, you sometimes have to level the entire foundation. This was the mid-video reset of her existence. She intentionally pushed herself into a position where returning to the top seemed mathematically impossible. Why? Because she wanted to touch the bottom of the well. She needed to know what was left when everything else was stripped away. The central paradox of her life is this: she was simultaneously the most fragile woman in Hollywood and the most powerful. How is that duality possible? The truth is, she weaponized conflict. She didn't eliminate fear, she entered into a strategic partnership with it. What is the fundamental difference between a high performer and an average person? It isn't the absence of fear, it is the ability to use fear as a combustible engine for momentum. When you feel fear, you stop. When she felt fear, she accelerated. Think about the moment she finally forced the world into silence. When no one expected her to ever command the spotlight again. She orchestrated a classic comeback. Not with an apology, not with an explanation, but by presenting an entirely transformed version of herself. She showed the world that those previous failures hadn't weakened her. They had given her depth. They provided the texture that she previously lacked. This is the grand lesson of her life. Without those devastating failures, she never would have reached that tier of internal power. So, what are you going to do? Will you allow your failures to dictate your identity, or will you use them as the bricks to build your new fortress? Jolie is not just an actress, she is a case study in resilience. She taught us that you don't need to be perfect to reach the summit. You only need to know how to navigate the depths and find your way back to the light. Look, life doesn't promise that you won't fail. Life guarantees that you will fail, and it is in that failure that you become great. Angelina Jolie walked that exact path. She cried, she lost hope, and she stood on the razor's edge of a total breakdown. But at every stage, she held on to one non-negotiable truth: I am still here. If you are still breathing, the game is not over. This is not the end of the story, because your story is written precisely in these moments of struggle. Jolie navigated this path and reached the pinnacle because she understood that power is not about a string of easy victories. Power is the ability to rise after you've been knocked down. Are you ready to start writing the next chapter of your life right now? The chapter where you emerge from the darkness into your own brilliance. Remember, the greatest opportunities in your life are hidden exactly in the moment you think everything is lost. The question is, can you be brave enough to look at that disaster and ask, what is the next move? That is the secret of Jolie. And now, that secret belongs to you. What mindset shift are you making right this second that will alter your trajectory tomorrow morning? Think about that, because the answer to that question is the master key to every door you currently see is locked.